Welcome to the Why We Build podcast. Join Steve Wheeler and our host, Greg Woleck, to explore the world of remodeling, whether you're on the production team, design team, or managing the whole show. You can expect insights, tips, and stories that inspire and educate. So let's dive into the Why We Build podcast.
Welcome to the Why We Build podcast. I am Greg Woleck here today with Steve Wheeler because I promised him an episode this week. If you listened last week, you understand it was about procrastination. Not this week. We're on top of it. You know, in remodeling, we talk a lot about tools, project management systems, estimating software, client processes, you name it. But the most powerful tool in business isn't on your computer or in your truck. It's in your head. Every decision we make, every conversation we have is shaped by what's happening in our mindset. And yet so many of us carry these three uninvited passengers everywhere we go. That's fear, doubt, and worry. They tell us to play it safe. They whisper, we're not ready. They convince us to wait one more week before making that hard call or difficult conversation. Those voices aren't advisors. They're saboteurs. And if we want to lead better, sell better, and live better, we've got to do what today's guest says, and that's fire them. So today we're talking about mindset, performance, and how to kick those three off the payroll for good. Steve, please introduce our guest.
Okay, here we go. So Jeff Borovitz is a nationally recognized Sandler Trainer, keynote speaker, and sales strategist who helps business owners and sales teams create unfair advantages in competitive markets. As the owner of Sandler Training, New Heights Consulting, Jeff brings 25 plus years of experience in sales, leadership, business development, and executive coaching. Known for his bold, practical approach, he blends proven Sandler methodologies with modern AI tools to transform sales culture, shorten sales cycles, and boost profitability. Jeff is especially known for elevating design-build remodelers and service businesses through repeatable, trust-based sales systems. His message, stop winging it, start winning with process, purpose, and practice. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Greg, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Jeff, how are you? I'm glad to have you on. It's been a while. We've been trying to line this up.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally, my travel schedule has been crazy, so I apologize. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to make it work.
No need to apologize. But hey, listen, before we talk tactics, what first led you to realize that fear, doubt, and worry were holding people back?
Well, I think that as I talk with business owners and especially remodelers, owners, they struggle with scaling a lot, and they struggle with how to and just change in general. And when I really have discussions with them, I find that I think we all have these voices inside our head, Greg. And not the schizo crazy voices, but just the normal conversation voices that we have in our head. And I think three of those voices, I liken it to the cartoons from Pixar, Inside Out, right? And I think we invite some people to our table, but there are three uninvited guests to that table of advisors. And those are, as you said in the opening, fear, doubt, and worry. And here's the funny thing about fear, doubt, and worry, is that we didn't invite them to the table. They just showed up. And guess what? They get to work every day early before you wake up. They're pervasive into your dream state as you're sleeping. And then they stay late. They're the things that make you not be able to fall asleep at night. They're the only three of your advisors that work full time and overtime. Right? And so what I know is this is you can't sell, you can't scale a business, you can't lead people when fear, doubt, and worry are the ones whispering in your ear. It's almost impossible to do it that way. But in order to displace them from the table, you've got to have three different advisors to fill those seats, because if those seats stay empty, fear, doubt, and worry are going to fill them again.
So you say fire your advisors. Now, we're not talking Sandler. We're not talking RA. We're talking in our heads. But what are these voices in our heads advising us to do that we need to get rid of them?
Well, I think, as you said, fear says, hey, you're not ready, right? Doubt says, you're not good enough. And worry screams at you, you're going to fail. Then what are you going to do? And those are just not helpful things to have in our head, right? Yeah, I think that I love how you called them saboteurs, because that's what they are, right? You've got to be able to stand up and say you're fired, but in order to do that, you've got to replace them. And I think you've got to replace fear first, right? Fear's job is to keep you safe, right? And listen, at times that's good, right? I mean, we don't want to kick fear completely out of the room. I want you to kick them out of your professional advisory board, right? Fear tells you don't stand on the railroad tracks when the train's coming. That's good. But fear also says, oh, what if that doesn't? Fear also says, don't try that. That's not a good idea. And generally in business, in our professional lives, when fear shows up is right when we're on the precipice of trying something new that could lead us to greatness. Fear doesn't show up when you play it safe, right? Fear doesn't show up when you say, okay, we're going to continue doing the process that we've done for the last 5 years. Fear does not show up then, even though maybe it should, right? But fear's job is, fear loves the status quo, right? It wants to keep you from growth because growth is scary. And fear's job is to be the border guard between your comfort zone and your growth zone, to keep you out from growing. That's what fear does. And we have to replace fear with something. And I think, as I've thought about it and I've done some research on it, I think the thing we want to replace fear with is courage. Right? Courage is not, is not as Hollywood plays it, right? It's not Mel Gibson with his face painted, giving the big speech in the face of certain defeat, right? That's not courage. Courage is sweaty palms, nervousness. It's not glamorous. But courage is, despite the nervousness and the butterflies in your stomach and the sweaty palms and the sweaty forehead and everything else that's going on, courage is being willing to move ahead anyways and take that first step, right? Yeah, do you know, either you know who Sarah Blakely is?
Spanx, right?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just
So do you know
celebrated
that-
25 years. How about it?
How about that, right? Do you know how she started?
Out of a dorm or out of her apartment?
Out of her apartment. But here's the funny thing. Do you know what she did before Spanx?
No.
She sold fax machines door to door.
Wow.
All right. So for the remodelers that are out there that think it's hard to do remodeling, imagine having to go door to door selling fax machines. She had like a 99% failure rate. 99% of the time people would tell her, get out. Right? But she came up with the idea for Spanx out of necessity because nothing was out there. And how she did that was she went to Long's Drugs, which no longer is in business except in Maui. All the rest of them are gone. But she went to Long's Drugs and she bought like 10 pairs of pantyhose. And she went back to her studio apartment and she cut the legs off of them. And then she started putting them on one at a time until it sucked in everything she wanted sucked in. And how many pairs of pantyhose that was going to take, right? And here's the thing. Sarah had zero experience in fashion. She had zero experience in manufacturing. She had zero experience at designing clothing. None. And nobody would help her. And fear tried to raise its head to her. But fortunately for Sarah, she had a very different relationship with fear because of her dad. Her dad Steve, this is a great thing to do. What her dad did when, as your kids are getting older, um, we all sit there with our kids and we say, "Hey, how was school today? What happened at school? Tell me something good that happened." That wasn't what Sarah's dad did. What Sarah's dad said was they sat down at dinner and he'd look at his kids and say, "Tell me something you failed at today." The only time he never got upset with them for failing. He only got upset with them when they didn't try something that allowed them the chance to fail. Because he believed, correctly as it turns out, that we learn far more from our failures than we learn from our successes. And so my favorite quote from Sarah is, "Don't let what you don't know scare you, because what you don't know can be your biggest asset because you don't know that it's quote unquote impossible." Right?
That's a big part of Sandler as well, is the, that Columbo sort of look at things.
Yeah.
Now, Sarah didn't have the experience that so many of our remodelers do. So what's the limiting belief in the remodelers and design builders that we're working with now?
It's conviction, right? I mean, I want you to think about this. Sarah went to 47 manufacturers who either told her it was impossible, she didn't have the experience necessary, or that it just wasn't a good idea. It was the 48th one that she went to that said, "If you can come up with the money, we'll do it." How many of us would have given up well before that 48th call? Most
Right.
people, right? But Sarah had conviction in her belief. She believed that this was something that women needed, right? And there was a hole in the market that nobody had thought of. And it turned out she was right, right? But she didn't worry about fear. She didn't worry about failing, right? She had conviction in her beliefs and she had the courage to act. And I think that's the difference. A lot of times I hear remodelers all the time say things, but there's no conviction in it, right? It's really funny. I think that my favorite example of this, and I was just at a roundtable dinner the other night and I heard it at the table, right? The Somebody said, "Well, they don't really fit our ideal client profile, but we're going to try it anyways." Well, what's the point of having an ideal client profile if you're not going to follow it? Is anybody going to be shocked when that turns out poorly? I don't think so, right? I don't think so. They're going to go, "Well, we knew it wasn't going to be a good fit." But how much, the slippage, everybody talks about slippage, right? And Doug Howard tells me a good slippage rate is 3%. And But I think most of the slippage doesn't happen in materials. Most of the slippage happens in time, right? The time we waste on things that we shouldn't spend time on because we lack conviction. And so I think that that's super important.
I would agree with that. Steve.
Well, this is all great, and it aligns perfectly with a lot of things in sales. Obviously, call reluctance, things like that, actions like that. But my question, Jeff, is how do you differentiate fear? And this is something I've always struggled with, is that internal uh you know the monkey mind, as they call it, of just repetitive thoughts and things like that. How do you differentiate fear and intuition?
Well, I think I think the key deciding factor here is when you there's some things that we want fear to stop us from doing. Don't step in front of the train, right?
Yeah.
And and the question I ask to determine those two things is, what's the worst thing that could happen? Right? If I do this, what's the worst thing that could happen? And as long as I'm willing to accept that the worst thing that could happen and I know I can recover from it, then I think that's the difference between fear and intuition, right?
Yep.
I know I can't survive stepping in front of the train, but I can survive the decision to to take a risk with the business and say, hey, you know what? We're gonna we're gonna move to a we're gonna move from a um, time and materials to fixed cost,
Yep.
right? What's the worst that could happen? And if you're willing
Yep.
to accept that, then that's where you stop fear.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I think that's where that fork in the road happens of fear and intuition. Obviously, intuition is an extremely helpful tool. When you ask that question, what's the worst that can happen? There's two directions. You either gain clarity in your conviction, which helps you make a better business decision or life decision, or it can be paralyzing and you can continue to overthink, which fear is well known for. And, one of the things that when I get into that place and I start going down the fear road and I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Boom. Okay, great. What's even worse? Boom. Great. And then you got to get into, I always tell myself, don't be a clairvoyant. I can't tell the future. What I can do right now is action. And action will dissolve fear every day of the week.
Well, and
You
that's
can
true.
continue to think, but any type of positive action toward the intuition direction of what you feel will outpace that fear, to me, is what can really help in that situation.
So,
Um,
so two things, Steve. I agree with you completely. But the reason that action dissolves that is because action delivers confidence,
yep.
right? Action delivers confidence, and confidence is the second thing. Remember, I said we got to fill all three seats. We're gonna replace doubt with confidence, and the most people don't act because they say, well, I'm gonna wait till I'm more confident. Well, guess what? I got bad news for people. Confidence is the only thing you can't get on Amazon. I've searched for it on Amazon, right? Everything else on Amazon, yeah, almost anything else I can buy on Amazon. But Amazon is not going to deliver confidence to my door. Confidence doesn't get delivered in an Amazon package. Confidence comes from action, right? And sometimes we have to take that first step to gain confidence. Momentum gets us to confidence, right? And but if we don't get momentum, we're never going to get there because action is the leader in confidence. It's football season right now, so I'll say action is the blocking back for confidence, right?
Yeah.
And there's a great story. I think everybody's been to Starbucks at this point, right? Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks, it's a great. Do you know the story of him? How he started?
Very lightly, but
He had really nice parents who sent him to Europe the summer after his college graduation, and all expenses paid. And he went around Europe, and as he was in Italy, he realized they have these coffee shops in Italy, and everybody gathers at the coffee shop. We didn't have anything like that in the U.S. And so people always gather in people's homes or were alone. And so he said, I wish there was a place where we could do this. And he wanted to bring the Italian coffee house to America, right? And he wanted to have a place where you can come get a cup of coffee and stay for hours. That went against everything in business at that point. And when he went to the private equity companies and the VCs to get money for Starbucks, they laughed him out of the room. Not 25 times, not 50 times, not 100 times, not 150 times, not even 200 times. 217 times he got laughed out of the room and told, that's crazy, you'll go broke. You can't have people spending 6 hours in a coffee shop without making them buy stuff every hour, right? And it was the 218th time that he got a yes. But he said he had so much conviction and confidence around the idea that he would have gone and done it 1,000 times, right? And again, I'll say this, most people would have given up well before 218, right? And now Starbucks is, you know, loved or hated depending on who you talk to, but but one thing they can't be is ignored.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
After I have a couple cups of Starbucks, I definitely feel jittery enough to have fear, doubt, and worry. Woo.
I know
Uh, it
my
gets
courage
me.
comes from something else, I think. But so we've got fear, we've got doubt. What about worry? What are we replacing worry with?
So I think we have to replace worry with calmness. Worry makes us uncertain. Worry is what allows panic into the room, and panic blinds you, right? Um, the the Navy SEALs have a saying that when we panic, people die, right? Now, let me be clear. When we panic in remodeling, nobody's dying, right? But a lot of bad things can happen when we panic. Calmness, clarity allows us to stay calm when everybody else around us is losing their heads. Calmness clears the path and shows us the way out without panic. And I think that sometimes we just need to be calm. In 2008, well, anyway, before I see that, does anybody remember renting VHS and DVDs at Blockbuster?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Betamax, where I was.
Betamax. All right,
I had
even
a
more.
Betamax.
All right, I never had a Betamax. I had a VHS. We couldn't afford Sony, uh, but you know, in 1999, there was a tiny little company in Los Gatos that started to compete with video rentals by sending DVDs by mail. You know who they were?
It would be Netflix.
Gotta be
That would be
Netflix.
Netflix, right? Well, it disrupted the video rental industry, right? Because no more did you have to stand on Friday night hoping that Blockbuster had your movie in. You could order it on Monday and have it in your mailbox already, right? Well, that system worked for a number of years. But what happened was people got tired of the latency because what people can be pretty lazy, and they didn't always return their DVD right away after they watched it. And now Netflix was running out of DVDs and you couldn't get the movie you wanted. And their revenue was going down, 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 down. And everybody at Netflix was panicking. Matter of fact, Reed Hastings tells a story. In 2008, they had 60 days worth of money left, right? They were going to be out of business. And they gathered everybody in a room and people were panicking. And Reed said he and one other guy were able to stay calm and get clarity. And they came up with the idea of what if we just invest all of our money into servers and we stream the movies? Nobody was doing this at that point. They went to the studios. The studios thought so little of the idea that they let them have streaming rights for less than they charged for DVDs. Right? And Netflix, inside of 60 days, spun up a streaming service. And today, Netflix is the third largest entertainment company in the world. It was not panicking, not allowing worry that we could go out of business, but being calm and getting clarity to clear the path to what became one of the best business decisions ever made. Right. And I think the reality is we have to say, hey, fear, you're still in the room, but you don't get a seat at the table anymore. We've replaced you with courage. Doubt, you're somewhere beyond where fear is in the room, further back. And We've replaced you with confidence. And worry, we still want you in the room, but you're back there with doubt. And we've replaced you with calmness, right? Because we know that courage brings conviction, confidence brings action with it, and calmness brings clarity with it, and with them to the table. And we've got much better advisors at the table when we do that. Fear, doubt, and worry are still going to be in the room. When we're driving our race car, that is our mind, it's not that they're going away. It's just that they don't get a turn at the wheel anymore. And when you're able to replace them at the table, your sleep becomes better. You're able to get to sleep faster. Your dreams are better. You wake up feeling refreshed when fear, doubt, and worry don't get a turn at the wheel.
What's something, when we recognize these three things, what's a practical step we can use to fire these saboteurs?
I think it starts with making the conscious decision to look for the signs, right? Am I doing this? Am I not doing this because I'm scared, right? And the question I ask myself all the time is this: will I regret not trying it? I think when we ask that question of will I regret not trying this, if we answer yes to that, that allows us to put fear, doubt, and worry to the back. If I answer no, I won't regret it, then it means that we listened to them at an appropriate time. I think the three questions that business owners have to ask themselves is: one, will I regret not doing this? Two, before you make any change, you should always ask the question of what problem am I trying to solve? Right? And that third is if I do this and I fail, what's the worst thing that could happen? I think if business owners ask those three questions and they get those answers, it becomes easy to know when to listen to fear, doubt, and worry and when to just put them in the back of the room.
Very good.
Let me
Steve.
just ask one more, my friend. So a couple thoughts. I think there's a few things that play against, when you think about fear, doubt, and worry, when you replace with courage, and you replace doubt. What are your three? Replace with
Courage, confidence, and calmness.
And calmness. On the other side of the field is ego. And that's the other thought. That's the other side that can get you into trouble. It's like you tell the story about Spanx and Starbucks and Netflix. But let's talk about Pepsi Clear. Let's talk about the XFL. Those are things that they
should
didn't
never have failed, by the way. They should never have failed.
Greg's a big XFL guy for everybody out there. So, those are things that there is a balance to it all, right? And one of the things that I have had incredible help with over the years, with fear, doubt, and worry is mindfulness and meditation. It's the number one thing to take time to catalog your thoughts. You don't put a label on those thoughts, and that is where you get a clarity between the fear and the intuition. This is, what is this actually telling me and what can actually happen, versus doubt. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. All those things that get in the way of forward action. And when you take it, you don't label it, you don't give it a place to grow, and you set it aside. Back to the breath and continue. And when I am in a consistent meditation practice, which I'm not always great at, but I work hard to, those things just become much easier. And like you said, Jeff, the sleep gets much better. Just the overall satisfaction of situations get better, without feeling that dread that fear, doubt, and worry can do. And Yeah, a lot of these things can be a lot more fun. Going on a sales call, dialing on a cold call. What's the worst that can happen? They can tell me to shove it in a way, right? Well, that's happened 50 times to me, 100 times to me. Great. All right. If that's the worst, then I'm still breathing. Things are great. Let's go, you know, and play it through and just go for it. And that's where the action dissolves that. But for me, I don't know if you have resources or things that you use, Jeff, to combat the fear, doubt, and worry. But for me, meditation has always been a big tool for me.
Yeah, I think first of all, Greg is just angry because he can't wear his "He Hate Me" jersey from the XFL.
Rod Smart. Hey, Super Bowl
Rod
ring, by the
Smart,
way.
"He Hate Me."
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Um, but but I think that meditation, Steve, is excellent. It brings calmness. You can't meditate if you're not calm.
No.
So already you've invited one of the main new advisors to the room and to the table when you decide to meditate, right? And they're bringing clarity along with them. And the other thing is, I love meditation, but I also love journaling,
Yes.
right? Just sitting there and spilling thoughts onto a page. Yep. And mine's digital now. My journaling's all verbal now,
Yep.
but spilling thoughts onto a page with no real purpose other than getting them out of your head. And it's amazing to me how journaling and getting those thoughts out of your head helps you get some clarity to it, right? And you start to, and when you see them on the page, you start to think about, well, what's the worst that can happen,
Yep. Yep.
right? And you're answering all, what problem am I trying to solve, and all the questions that we talked about, right? They come from journaling. So I think meditation's great. I think journaling's fantastic. And most people tell me, Jeff, I've tried to journal. I just don't know what to write. Right.
Just
And
right.
and I tell them, then start with that.
I don't know
I
what to write.
I don't know what to write. And by the way, when I first started journaling, when I first joined Sandler, my coach told me, you have to journal. I'm like, I don't know what to write. And he said, write that. And I wrote for like 3 weeks. I wrote, I don't know what to write. And that was my whole journaling thing. Right. And then I turned it into him and he goes, okay, Jeff, after 3 weeks, you have to have a second sentence. Right. And so I said, and so the next day I don't know what to write. And I said, I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. And then the day after that, I wrote, I don't know what to write. I guess a possible purpose of this is blank. And then I just started writing. And since then, I journal. Listen, I'd like to say I journal every single day, but I think that's more of an aspirational statement than a
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
Um, and if you ask me in practice, do you journal? Yeah, I journal every day. But again, it's aspirational. Are there days I don't journal? Sure, there are days I don't journal. But I journal more than I don't. And when I don't journal, I'm thinking at some point about in the day about, I need to journal.
Yeah. You can feel it. It kind of bottles up. And when
Yeah.
you get those thoughts, I mean, I have a notepad next to my bed at night. If there's certain things keeping me up, when I write it down, it is like ambient. Boom, I'm out because I get it onto the page. And one thing with journaling too is if you're really, when we have those suffocating moments, everybody gets into those times where, wow, I really feel pressed against the wall here. You journal, write down what you think that fear is telling you, what's the worst thing that could happen, and then go look at it 2 weeks later. And then you'll start to develop the muscle of seeing, A, what I thought was going to happen happened. And guess
Yeah.
what? It's not so bad.
Yeah.
And, or, wow, I was way off. And you start to take the legitimacy of fear starts to go out the door. You start to really think, wow, that voice in my head is really trying to keep me off track here. So that's all just great practices. Journaling is phenomenal. It can be extremely, extremely helpful. And, people are always like, huh? It goes back to, I don't know what to write. It's like, then just write that this is a silly thing that I'm doing. And I'm just doing it because somebody told me to write that and then just keep going. It can be a really pivotal action that you take for
I agree
sure. It's
completely.
helped me out a lot. This is
Jeff,
awesome.
before we let you go, though, we have this segment called Hammer Time with Steve Wheeler. He's
Let's
going to
do it.
ask you some questions. You have not been pre-fed these questions. No controversy there. Just do your best. Let loose. Don't overthink it. Have fun. That's what it's for.
No problem.
Steve.
Let's do it.
All right, Jeff, here we go. Favorite book, fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
What is it?
Tom Clancy's book, Rainbow Six.
All right. How about a nonfiction? Give me one of those.
Uh, Nonfiction. I think, well, my, I guess I should say you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar by David Sandler, but I'm not going to say that. My actual favorite nonfiction book is Over the Top by Zig Ziglar.
All right. How about who would play you in a movie about your life as a sales coach and trainer?
Wow. Um, what's his name? Um, he always plays the sidekick in the movies.
John C. Riley?
No. Is it Jonah Hill? Is that it? Yeah, that's who it
Yeah,
is.
it's good. He's pretty good. He's versatile.
Yeah.
Favorite vacation spot?
Maui.
Random skill you've always wanted to learn, but haven't yet.
Juggling.
Oh man, you can buy that on Amazon. I
You
have done
can buy
that.
that on Amazon.
Okay.
Yes.
What's a word or phrase that you use too much?
Fair.
Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, last but
But
not
as a
least.
question mark, fair.
All right, but last but not least, what do you like better? A full tank of gas or a clean load of laundry?
Oh, clean load of laundry.
All right, great. Great work.
Especially Steve, when it's cold and it just comes out of the dryer nice and
Oh,
warm.
perfect. Yeah, I'm with you.
Steve, that was a real creative one. I like that last question.
I mean, that was on the fly. That was
that
not on
was
my
awesome.
list.
No, that
Well,
Well,
was
you know, it's
got
funny.
done.
Mark used to ask me what's going to be cleaner, your desk or your car.
Yes.
yeah.
And my answer every time is the car because I'm anal about the cars.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been
Jeff,
great, Jeff.
yeah, can't thank you enough for being here with us today. Thank you so much. Can you give us one last nugget and where can people reach you?
So best way to reach us is one of two ways. Uh, we've got over 500 short videos on Instagram and the Instagram handle is Selling with Jeff. And if they want to reach out directly, they can reach us. Reach us out to us, but sellingwithjeff@sandler.com. And the one last nugget I'll give you is Steve has heard this one before. Surprise is the enemy of yes. When we surprise clients, they almost always say no. We need to eliminate surprise.
Really
Great.
good.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Jeff, thank you so much for being with us.
Enjoyed it very much. Love to come back sometime.
Right on.
Take care.
So, Steve, the courage is one of the first things that Jeff mentioned in terms of how we fill in that void. And I think I am a big fan of Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius. I've read Meditations probably 30 times. I've gifted it at least that many as well. But one of they're called the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. Courage is usually the one that people lean on the most because with courage, I think you can do all things. So definitely, totally agree with that. And I thought it was cool that I could apply it to my stoic thought process. How about you?
This podcast is phenomenal. And, Jeff is very well known for his sales training and things like that. But, these are the things that people just don't talk about enough. Why are they, whether it's mindset, fixed or growth mindset, whatever it is, whether it's just what is getting in the way of us achieving what we want and what do we actually want. So, having discussions like this, having a podcast around fear, doubt, and worry, I think allows people to just get out of their head a little bit, to be like, I do that all the time. This is where my path of fear thinking or worry thinking takes me. Usually it's nowhere good. And getting out of that rut is a challenge. It's a cycle that's hard to get out of. But just having podcasts like this, I think, is really important for people to recognize, A, they're not weird for thinking what they're thinking or having the thought track that's probably not positive or beneficial to them. And then to just know that, hey, there are things you can do. There are, actions and thought process and resources, tools to try to break that cycle, but it's not easy, and it takes intention with anything. It takes intention, but just the thought that we're having discussions like this, I think is really, really beneficial. So I'm thankful to Jeff to even, come up with or, you know, promote the thought of this, the title of this podcast, because it's really important.
It is. And if you've ever taken any Sandler training or read any of the Sandler books, it's a lot about limiting beliefs and
Yeah.
what's preventing you from growing. The whole idea of being a 10, Jeff didn't bring that up at all in this, but that's a big part of what we do in Sandler. The other thing he mentioned was using regret as a tool. I know a lot of people say no regrets, right? We've seen that movie, I hope, right? The neck tattoo spelt wrong,
Yeah.
but there's a really great book by Daniel Pink called The Power of Regret. And it is a really great look at how you can use regret as a tool instead of, again, a lot of people say, oh, I have no regrets. I think you're missing out if you're not looking back on times where you could have done stuff different or do stuff better. I know I think about that every day almost. Like, what could I have done better in a particular situation? So a great book for sure. Any final thoughts there, Steve? We did do a podcast on mindset last season. You should listen to that again, folks, if you haven't heard it already, or you should listen to it if you haven't heard it already, obviously. But yeah, I think this is a big part of both of our mindsets, both of our sort of how we manage ourselves.
Yeah, and just I think taking stock of your thoughts, period, is important. Is what are my repetitive thoughts? What am I telling myself? I always go back to I get to certain situations and I say, Steve, don't be you right now. The simple reason I say that is because I know sometimes like where I'll normally go if I'm not, being mindful or focused on the situation. Whether at that point I'm having more fear or worry about certain things. It's like, what, if I was this or that or any other thing, how would I look at it? And just try to get that visual of how could I look at this differently right now. I like who I am, so it's good to be me. But the point is to just say, to break the cycle of the thought train, that
Yeah.
monkey mind, as we call. So, yeah, I think, the limiting beliefs is a killer for so many different people. We see it in roundtables all the time. And, you can draw a clear delineation of people that find a great deal of success versus people that don't. It really a lot of times comes down to that. What are they telling themselves? What are they saying they can or can't achieve? And usually that's the direction it goes. If they say they're not worthy, if they say they can't, they're not smart enough, it's probably what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
um, it's really ones that are unbridled in their self-belief that, find levels of success, whether that's natural to them or manufactured through resources and practice. Both of the, get you the same result.
Well, I often ask myself, what would Steve Wheeler do when I'm in a tough situation? So I don't know why you're saying don't be me. You are a great leader for sure, and love doing this. But we're running late here, a little bit over time. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And, thank you all for listening.
That's it for this episode of the Why We Build podcast. We hope you found something valuable to take back to your team. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Please send in your ideas for future episodes. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. If you want more information about our Roundtables program, production manager groups, design manager groups, consulting services, or any of the Remodelers Advantage offerings, please visit remodelersadvantage.com or email greg@remodelersadvantage.com.